my old faithful 5-quart Dutch oven. I'm going to put the bones in that I got off of the meat that I cut. I have another bag of bones that I'm going to add to it from a different time, but I have enough to put under the grape leaves. My family likes the bones, so I put a lot under. Okay, I've put it on high. When it starts to boil, if you don't lower the temperature to a little lower than medium, maybe medium low, it will flow over and you'll get all this stuff all over your stove. See everything that comes out of the meat? I'm just going to skim it off. Now I'll let it continue to cook. I leave them on for at least an hour. On medium low. It might get a little more scum on it, but that's alright because I do wash them off before I use them. It's been about a half hour now, and there's a little more what I call scum on the top. I'm going to skim it off and leave it cook. I'll probably cook it another hour and a half because I want the meat to be tender. Even though it does cook when you're making the meal, they'll be on the bottom of the pot and they will cook more. So usually I just leave them on while I'm rolling the grape leaves or stuffing the kusa. So it doesn't hurt anything to let them cook. If you want, you can take them out at this point even. Put them under your meal if you're in a hurry. They've at least gotten all this stuff off of it. They're clean. Wash them in cold water, put them in the bottom of the pot, and you're ready to use them. But I like to cook them a little longer. This is how I have my grape leaves when I get them in the summer. I roll them, put them in a plastic baggie, and I'm ready. Now I'm going to put some warm water in this bowl, take them out of the bag, hold them under warm water. And yeah, these are going to be nice ones. See? I press out some of the water and I lay them in the plate so it doesn't drip all over. But that's just how quick they thaw out. See, here's one side, here's the other side, and there's the pointy ones. So none of the points are cracked off. Now these are all ready to roll. If I take out too many of these leaves and I've used up all the meat, what I do is just fold it over like this, put it in a plastic bag, and stick it back in the freezer. I don't throw them out. I'm going to prepare the rice for the grape leaves, or Yebra, or forages, however you call it. I'm going to wash it real well until all the starch comes out. The recipe is 1 cup of rice to 1 pound of meat. When I'm making 3 or 4 pounds, I put a little bit less rice. Maybe a 1/4 of a cup less. See how cloudy the water is? You keep doing that until I get a nice clean water. If you do this and get rid of all the starch, your grape leaves will cook a little bit nicer. I've got 3 pounds of freshly ground lamb. You can see there's a little bit of fat in it. That's good. Gives it good flavor. Sometimes I make it even a little fattier than this. Then I'm going to add the rice. The recipe is 1 pound of meat, 1 cup of rice. When I'm making more than a pound, I usually take a little bit less rice. Spread it around. I don't measure the salt and pepper. I just sprinkle as if I was sprinkling it on a piece of meat. There. Same with the pepper. I just sprinkle it. It's hard for me to measure because I'm not sure. I don't know if I measure what the flavor would be. And one time I measured some of the spices and it wasn't enough. Now I'm mixing it all together, making sure I get all the meat mixed in with the rice. See how there's clumps of meat? You want to make sure you break them up. Make sure there's rice in it. This really looks pretty. Because the meat was freshly cut, it's nice and soft and tender. But it's the same way if you had it in the freezer and you took it out. You let it thaw out first and then you mix it in. I think we're pretty well mixed now. I also keep a measuring cup of cold water next to me with a couple of little ice cubes. And as the meat dries, or the rice dries from sitting out while I'm rolling, I pour a little bit more water and moisten it. The moisture in the rice and meat also helps it cook properly. I'm all set up to roll. Now I take a wet cloth, warm water, and I put it under the plastic sheets. That's the easiest thing for me to roll on. So then it won't slide so much. Taking leaves, taking one at a time after I separate them. And take one at a time. This is about the most aggravating part, is separating the leaves after they're wet. Sometimes I have one of my children separate for me, and I just keep rolling. It goes a lot faster. I'm going to put a little bit of meat over here. I take a little bit, put it near the top of the leaf, and I want to keep a nice amount to the side so that I can fold it over. I bring it up to the opening. I roll half over. Roll it once or twice so that it's not showing. I fold over once and then the other time. And I press down, fold it over again, and then I roll. Again. Now you notice this big opening here. When I pick the grape leaves, I put all the stems together and I snip out the stems. Then I don't have to deal with them, because I remember my mom taking each one, taking off the stem, throwing it aside, and then making the grape leaf, and doing it every single time. In fact, I used to have to take some of the stems off for her so she could go faster. Again, up near the opening, over once, twice, till the meat's gone. Fold one side down, fold the other side in. One side down, the other side in. This helps them stay closed. Here we are. You want the shiny part down. When I have people helping me, I teach them that it should all be the same size for the whole length. You don't want it too fat because it will open up. You might have trouble with it. I start up here, roll it over, roll it again, once over and close, once over and close, and roll. And when the leaves are pretty much the same size, it's easy to make them all the same size. Take some of these and separate them. This one looks like it's a little smaller. Maybe you can see that. When I pick my leaves, I used to put all the same size in one packet. Well, then I ended up with some packages that had all small ones. So now I just take them as they come and make the pile, and they're all different sizes. So this one's a little bit smaller, but you do the same thing. Roll it over, and I've kept enough on the sides to fold over and fold in, fold over and fold in, and roll. This one's even a little bit smaller. It's still the same thickness. You want this edge here on each one. And roll. See, now that's a little smaller. My mom used to make sure they were all the same length, and she made them thinner. She wouldn't let anybody help her unless they learned to make them all the same length like she did. I just make it probably the thickness the size of your ring finger. I'm told there are machines now that would roll it. They're little boxes that you put the grape leaf in. I don't have one, so I don't know. I do it all by hand. They may be smaller or larger, but they're all just about the same thickness. This is a torn one, so I'm going to leave it aside. And sometimes I use pieces of it to patch if there's a little hole in some of the other ones. That one had quite a few holes, so I'm not going to try to patch it. Okay, now you see the difference? There's the smooth side. I had it on the wrong side, and there's the veins. Here, now I have one with a little rip. It's in the place where I would roll it over and fold it in. So I'm going to take this leaf, cut a piece off, save it for another time, and I'm going to fill in where that hole is. That's all. Take a little bit more meat, put it out here for myself. It just seems easier than reaching into the pan every single time. So I put a little bit out to the side. There, and now the hole is covered. Roll, roll, and over and close, over and close. See, and the hole is gone. Now if you find that you can't find a place to pick any, these are just the wild vine growing grape leaves that you see all over. But if you don't find a place where you can get them, you can buy them in the jars at the grocery stores. Even the regular grocery stores carry them now. And you could use those. Rinse them out to get all the brine off of them, and then use them. The few times I've gotten them, they were really big. You can cut them in half and make your own little roll. I had the ability to pick my own right in my own backyard. My son built 2 fences and put some on, and I had enough this year to do all my picking. They're beautiful. These definitely are just the wild ones, the real thin ones. If you have grapes, the very first beginning of the grape leaves from grapes is okay because they're still tender and the grapes haven't come. But the back of them is tough because they're there to protect the grapes. But these are just the wild grapes, the grapevines that you see in your yard, in parks, anywhere. And usually nobody minds if you pick them. The best time to pick them is middle of June, beginning of July. Every area is different, but they should be young and tender ones. Usually the ones that have the red vine, those are very tender and very nice, and they have a good flavor when you cook them. It's really cute. My mother-in-law had a friend, and one of her friend's sons worked at the Ford factory in Dearborn. And they had a beautiful fence loaded with wild grapevines. And all these little old women would go over there and pick their grape leaves. And they're looking out and they're watching these little heads pop up and taking things off the fence. And so what they did was tear down the fence and put up a brick wall because they thought somebody was trying to steal their ideas or their designs. We knew the guy that worked there, and he told us that he said to them, "What's the matter with you? It's just all the old ladies picking the grape leaves so they can make Yebra, make grape leaves for dinner." And they got a big kick out of that because it cost them thousands of dollars, if not more, to put up that new wall. That was many years ago, though. Now I notice it's getting a little dry, so I'm going to take some of this ice water and pour a little bit in and mix it up. What I do is just mix a little at a time so that this stays moist, and then I'll put more when I want to do that. That way there's not too much water in it. There we are. You see how time consuming this is, and during the holidays you're really busy. So I will take this tray, I roll them, fresh ground meat, put them in a pan that's not aluminum. I put a plastic wrap over it, then I wrap it real tight with foil, and I put them in the freezer. And I take them out the day before I'm going to cook them. I do that 3 or 4 days up to a week ahead of time. So you can roll them and have that part of your special meal out of the way. Then you just take them out the night before you're going to cook them. By morning, they're thawed out. You put them in the pan, put all your ingredients, cover it with water, and cook it. And they're delicious. It doesn't do anything to freeze them. I do this whenever there's a holiday coming up. Most of the time, I make my food myself. So this saves me a day. This 3 pounds here took us about 2 hours. I'm all done with the rolling. 3 pounds of meat gave me about 160 grape leaves. I don't usually count them, but it's good to know. I've got the bones. I've had them on for a while, so they're a little cooler. They're not real hot. I'm going to pour cold water on them. Rinse the grease off of them. And these are going to go underneath the grape leaves. Getting ready to cook. I grind up the garlic. I've got like maybe 8 or 10 garlics. Gives it most of the flavor. Cut the big ones a little bit, and then I blend it up. I add a little tiny bit of water so that it grinds it properly. Doesn't have to be real fine. Broken up so it gives it more flavor. I've seen it put in whole, but I like to chop them up a little bit. Now I'm going to take the bones that we boiled before, and I'm going to lay them in the bottom of the pan. This is to keep the grape leaves up off the bottom. If you don't have bones, you can take some of the grape leaves and lay it in the pan, 2 or 3 deep, and then that'll stop it from sticking. Now you'll notice some of my bones are just the flat bone, but the flavor and the marrow in there is very good. I didn't leave much meat on it, but I still use those bones. I'm going to put a few of the big ones in the middle as I layer them, and I always face them towards the center, because that's how my mom did it. And go circular around the pan. Picking them up, a few at a time. This will make a nice meal for a family, and they might even have some left over. My daughter and her family are coming over for dinner. It will take an hour to an hour and 15 minutes for it to cook. I'll test them when it gets closer to the time to take them off. You see how I just keep putting them around in a circle? Put the little ones in the middle to fill it up. Keep the other ones going around the side. And that's all of them. There. That's what it looks like. That's how I do it. I'm going to just sprinkle 1/3 of a cup of citric acid. That'll make it nice and tart. You can use a scant cup. You can start with 1/4 of a cup and then put a little more if you think you need it. My family likes them tart. You can use lemon juice if you don't have the citric acid. Now I'm going to put the garlic in. Just sprinkling that around, making sure it all gets in there. It's over to the stove now. You pour enough cold water to cover all the grape leaves, making sure they're all underwater. Then I take a heavy plate and lay it on top. And that's so when it starts to boil, they won't open up or move around a lot. It holds them in place. It's been about 15 minutes now and it's boiling away. I've got it on high. Now I'm going to move it down to medium-low because I want it to cook slow. I'm going to leave it slightly open so the steam escapes. It's just about an hour now. It's still boiling pretty solidly. I'm going to take the plate off and try one of them. All this time it's been on like a medium-low. Putting the plate on top kept them all just like I put them in the pan. They didn't all break up. Tasting it to see if the rice is cooked, if the tartness is good. 1/3 of a cup of citric acid was perfect for 3 pounds of meat. I think it needs about 15 more minutes. The rice needs to be cooked a little bit more. So I'm going to turn the burner off, leave the cover on. I have an electric stove, so the burner will stay hot for a length of time. Okay, It's been about 15 minutes now. I'm going to pour out the water. I don't let it sit in the water. It'll continue to cook. I'm pouring the juice into a bowl. Try to get as much as I can without having them come down and fall into the water. And there it is. Now I'm going to transfer them onto the platter, on my mother's beautiful platter. I'm taking them out one at a time. I take them all out of the pan, and then I can get down to the bones. I'm not in favor of dumping the pan out and having them all fall out. If there's pieces of garlic on it, that's fine. Some of the people like the garlic just like that. Doesn't matter, you don't have to take it off. This is served as a main meal tonight. I sometimes use them as an appetizer. It can be a whole meal. It could be used as a side dish. I'm going to put the bones in this bowl, and it'll be served with the grape leaves. And believe it or not, everybody loves the bones. They fight over them. The lamb bones are very delicious. See, there's a piece of lamb. They give a good flavor to the grape leaves. And the citric acid makes them tart. That's it.